Madam Secretary, it's good to have you before the committee. This will be, of course, the first of many opportunities to sit down and work together on issues that are clearly important to our nation, our public lands, clearly important to my state as the host of so many of those treasures. So again, welcome and congratulations. I also want to acknowledge the good work of Deputy Secretary David Hayes, and I share the Chairman's appreciation for the work that you have provided for the Department of Interior under former Secretary Salazar. We all know that, or we both know that there were some very difficult issues that you worked on, particularly the issues related to the Arctic OCS. We didn't always agree on everything, but you were always very honest, very open with me and my staff. I appreciate that, and I appreciate your leadership within the department. I am sorry to see you leave, but good luck to you as you go off to Stanford. And anytime you want to come fishing up north, you know that we're there to welcome you. I also want to acknowledge today both Ria Sue, the Assistant Secretary for Policy Management and Budget, and of course Pam Hayes. Again, a great individual within the department there. I appreciate your good work. Madam Secretary, I know that you're new to this position, but you truly do have a seasoned budget team with you today that I think will serve you well during your tenure. And like your predecessor who visited our state frequently, I hope, Madam Secretary, that you will come to Alaska soon. This is a critical time for our state, and I would certainly appreciate the opportunity to show you personally some of the things that are a priority for me and from Alaskans, not the least of which we'll have an opportunity, hopefully in August, to go out to King Cove. But there's so much to see, so I look forward to those opportunities. As you start your new position, I will say the same thing that I said to my friend Ken Salazar when he assumed the position as Secretary of the Interior. You are Alaska's landlord, effectively. We've got over 220 million acres under the department's jurisdiction, and that does not include the millions of acres of outer continental shelf waters. We have the nation's largest national wildlife refuge, which is fully 85% of the entire refuge system. We have the nation's largest national park and nearly 1/3 of all BLM lands, over 75 million acres. We also have 1/2 of all federally recognized tribes, and the trust responsibility that the federal government owes to our First Peoples is very important to me. And at times, I don't think it has been given the attention that it deserves by either the Department of Interior or BIA's sister agency, the Indian Health Service. So I hope that you would take a fresh look at improving the department's relationship with Native Americans and Alaska Natives. Now, turning to your budget, I know that most of it was largely developed prior to your assuming this position as Secretary. That's got to be a tough situation to walk into. But I must tell you that there are two proposals in this request that are frankly an insult to the people of Alaska, and I'm speaking particularly of the legislative proposals concerning future funding for the cleanup of legacy wells in the National Petroleum Reserve Alaska and the completion of surveys that are necessary to convey final patents to the state of Alaska and to Alaska Natives. Over 100 wells were drilled by the federal government within the NPRA and then simply abandoned. The government simply walked away. The annual budget for BLM has for many years contained base funding of only about $1 million for cleaning up these wells. The last two sites that were addressed cost the agency $2 million each to remediate to acceptable standards. So at this pace, it's going to take over 100 years to clean up this mess. And interestingly, if the federal government were a private company operating on state lands, the fines alone would exceed $8 billion. But we all know that the federal government is exempt from state regulation on its own lands. While the current situation is bad enough, the budget now proposes to take the state's share of future revenues that are generated from the NPRA to pay for the cost of the cleanup. In other words, Mr. Chairman, if what is proposed here, the budget proposes to charge the state of Alaska for the federal government's own mess. For what they failed to clean up, they are now asking the state to step in and pick it up. And I just need to be very, very plain today. This proposal, in my view, is dead on arrival. It's just not going to happen. So we need to be working together to address the way that we will move forward with that, and I look forward to that opportunity. Likewise, the notion that the state must pay for the final lands entitled to it under the Statehood Act is equally wrong-headed. This has been a problem for decades. So again, you're walking into a situation that has been out there unaddressed, and how you will deal with it is difficult. In 2004, the Congress passed the Alaska Land Transfer Acceleration Act that was intended to nearly finish conveyances by the 50th anniversary of statehood. That was back in 2009. That, of course, didn't happen, but at least the department has made an attempt to increase the pace of conveyances, and I do appreciate that. For the last several years, the department annually slashes the budget request for this program, even though the state is still waiting for title to over 37 million acres of its lands. Alaska Natives are awaiting final transfer of 11.4 million acres, fully 1/4 of their lands. Some 40 years after the fact, they're still waiting. My staff has searched. They can find no other state in the Union that was ever asked to effectively pay to gain the lands that were promised them when they joined this union. Not Arizona, not New Mexico, not Florida, not California. No one, not one state has been asked to foot the bill to pay for the lands. We're not going to start with Alaska. I would ask Mr. Chairman, I've received a letter from the Alaska Native Village CEO Association that speaks to the issue of the land conveyances, and I would ask that that be included as part
Without
of the
objection.
record. So, Madam Secretary, you have a very unique background. We had an opportunity to discuss this during your confirmation hearings, a unique background in both the oil and gas industry and the private sector, as well as the conservation community. I know that some have perhaps been critical about your lack of experience in the public policy realm, but I'm hopeful that a fresh set of eyes, a new perspective like you bring, can help us move beyond some of the traditional stalemates that we have faced that pit one interest against another. I honestly believe it's possible for you to set a policy agenda at the department that is beneficial to all parties. My state and our country have so much potential to provide the help needed to address our nation's energy security, high unemployment, the sluggish economy, and I think that working together, we can set this on the right course. So I appreciate your willingness to work with me on that. Mr. Chairman, I thank you and all of our witnesses for appearing before the subcommittee today and look forward to the opportunity for questions.